The debate was pretty freaking bad for Joe Biden, right? So ever since then, there's been a lot of talk about replacing Joe Biden. Who could replace Joe Biden? Is it too late? What's the process? All that kind of stuff. That has been the discussion ever since, right? You guys have seen it. I've been posting on our X page, which you should go follow, all of the predicted updates. And I tend to put more trust in predicted than I do in most polls or most surveys or anything like that, because this is where people are putting their money, where they think that there's a real case for it. And recently, that has flipped to Joe Biden not being the favorite. I think he's the favorite right now. Actually, let's look it up. All right, so as of this recording, Kamala Harris is sitting at 47 cents and Joe Biden is sitting at 37 cents. And we can look, the last few days since the debate, and he's just been, this is Biden, the purple line. He's gone from, in the last 7 days, he's gone from 72 cents down to 40 cents, a 32% drop in his standing. Kamala Harris was underneath Gavin Newsom at that time, went from 11 cents to 43 cents. So this is kind of where they are right now. You can refresh this constantly throughout the day and just get new updates, but she's consistently been above him the last couple days. And so what that tells me is that there's actual movement towards the idea of replacing Joe Biden. He's very stubborn and is not going anywhere. And a lot of the Harry Sissons of the world are coming out and defending him. But I saw this video, and I think this might be a good one. Democrats start moving to Harris as Biden digs in.
Amid the ongoing fallout from Joe Biden's concerning debate performance, talk in many top Democratic circles has already moved to who Kamala Harris would choose as a running mate. That's how certain a widening group of leading party officials, operatives, and donors are that the president's slow start to salvage his campaign just isn't working. Harris's office updating her schedule yesterday to have her appear with the president for the 4th of July.
Today, as we celebrate freedom, as we celebrate the promise of America, we also celebrate and express our gratitude to our service members, to our veterans, to our military families.
That face right there, and that voice. Is she gonna cackle? Please don't cackle.
And we give thanks to our commander.
Your drums are saved.
The President of the United States, the extraordinary President of the United States, Joe Biden.
I wasn't watching him, but he seems relatively normal. What's he gonna say?
CNN.
Oh, they cut him off. Okay, so there's what did she say in the beginning? There's debates about who the VP for Kamala is gonna be. I don't know. I guess the conversation is just naturally progressing, but yeah, well, I'll give my thoughts on it here in a moment.
Senior reporter Isaac Dover joins the panel. Isaac, you have new reporting about the vice president. What can you tell us?
Well, look, Joe Biden always says, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. But his problem right now is that a lot of Democrats are doing that as they're thinking about Kamala Harris. They have been really frustrated with the slow start to the way that Biden has tried to salvage his campaign, the not seeing him or hearing him much over the course of last week. And this has turned to a triage situation for Democrats where they feel like they need to move on. They don't think it's going to work out for Biden, a lot of them, and they think the most realistic shot that they have of beating Donald Trump is to move quickly toward Harris and to get moving on that right away. And that is yet another problem as Biden tries to hold on to his position here. But for the Harris world themselves, they are very deliberately ignoring a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails and a lot of texts that are coming in, but there have been a lot of them.
Okay, so it would make sense that Harris is doing that, right? She is the VP. She cannot be the one to say Joe Biden has to go. There's been talk about the 25th Amendment. It's not going to happen. They're not going to 25th him. It's just not going to happen. The only way that this is going to happen is if Joe Biden himself decides to step down. If the Democrats decide to remove him, it makes them look super weak. If Joe Biden removes himself, it makes him look super weak. But if they force him out, it definitely makes him look super weak. If they try to do something at the convention with the super delegates, everybody's saying it can't happen. Don't forget, DNC's got super delegates. Just ask Hillary Clinton. She knows how to work them. It could happen there. I don't think so. I think the only way that they get out of this is if Joe Biden himself steps down, and he's shown no indication that he wants to do that. I'm sure they're going to talk about that here in a moment. But I wouldn't expect Kamala Harris to say anything about that. So the second part about that was that, they're saying that if they're going to move with Kamala, they need to do it now. That's true. If they are going to move with somebody, the sooner they do it, the better. But I think, personally, that we're way too late in the game for this. I think that any move, anyone that they go with, is going to be almost sure failure. I think it's better to lose with Biden than it is to lose with Newsom, than it is to lose with Kamala Harris or anybody else that they could try to put into that position. I think that would be the best way for them to lose. If they want to get rid of Kamala, it might make sense to drop Joe Biden and then get rid of Kamala, like that way by having her lose. But I think anybody that you would replace him with, Democrat voters and, Democrat strategists or whatever, once that inevitable replacement, I say inevitable, once that assumed replacement lost to Donald Trump, the reaction from that would be, we should have never gotten rid of Biden. He beat him once, he could have beat him again. And that fight, that debate, that's been going on since like Bernie became real popular for the progressive side of the Democratic Party. That fight's been going on forever. But those flames will be reignited, and that Democrat Party civil war will find new life. And I think that's just like ultimate destruction. I think the only choice that they have, the only viable choice they have right now, is to keep Joe Biden in and to lose with Joe Biden and then come back and try to rebuild later. Unless they want to do some really good election fortification, unless they put together the biggest fortification strategy the world has ever seen. That might be the only other option, is like if they can get Biden reelected, then he can drop dead and then Kamala can take over. I mean, yeah, I don't see them replacing Biden as a viable strategy to beat Donald Trump. Some people are saying that Michelle Obama would be that one person that could unite the party after such a move. I'm not even convinced that that's the case. Not only because of the reports that Michelle Obama doesn't want to do it, but I think there's so many people. Sure, there are a lot of people that look back on the Obama years as like, some great achievement for civil rights in the history of our nation and that kind of stuff. And they'll see Michelle Obama in that same light. But there's a lot of people after the Obama years that really woke up to how terrible they are. And so I'm not totally convinced that people will be so moved by the first black female president. I'm just not convinced that that's the case. It's possible, but again, if Biden steps down, you have to replace her with Kamala. Like, Kamala has to also agree to step down. And why would she do that? But she's not going to do it until the end, if she ever does it. Anyway, back to the video.
But it's not just Kamala Harris who's being considered, right? If not her, then who else is in the realm of possibility?
Well, look, there are other people who get talked about, a couple of the governors, but the reality is...
The reality is none of those fucking governors are worth a damn. I heard names like Gretchen Whitmer. Are you kidding me? No. Gavin Newsom? No.
That very few people in the Democratic Party believe that they have a path to victory if they were to pass over her, because of what it would lead to, and because of the drawn-out process that it would be. And she is there, ready in a lot of minds to go. And by the way, I talked to a lot of people who have been very skeptical over the years of her. A lot of people who are way beyond skeptical, who I have heard say things to me about her that have been pretty awful, actually, over the past couple of years, who are now saying, I'm ready.
Nobody likes her.
A leader of one Democratic organization, I said, look, for all of it, you see Biden's poll numbers, they're not great, her numbers aren't great, which would you rather? And the person said to me, are you kidding? At this point, that person and many others says it's time to go to Harris.
Well, some of this is also reflected in our recent polling, which has Harris inching closer to Trump in a hypothetical one-on-one match here with about 2% separating them. What do you make of that in the larger?
This is absurd. This is this is not even close. This is not how it goes down. If she wants to convince her allies and people that are on her side that she is a viable replacement to Joe Biden, she has to show better numbers than this. Like, no, this is just not even. It has to be an outlier. I could not ever imagine a world where Kamala Harris is equally as popular. Well, I guess equally as popular. Donald Trump's not that popular, but I don't see this being a close race at all. But whatever. What do I know?
Context of things, is it easy to be a hypothetical candidate in a one-on-one match?
Yes.
Would this extend to the election itself?
Sure, it's always easy to be hypothetical, right? And if she gets into it, then the attacks are going to come landing on her. Look, one of the things that differentiates her from other potential Democratic prospects, which is important here, is that she was through a presidential campaign, through a vice presidential campaign. She has been vice president. Yes, that's built up a lot of bad feelings towards her among some, but it also means that a lot of the things in her past have already been gone through. They would definitely get a fresh look, but it's different from a candidate who would be new to the national scene, who would be going through that, and who everybody would be going through at a very fast pace.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't understand what this is about. Like, oh, they've campaigned before, and suddenly that makes them valuable. I guess to his point, I guess it means that you've been a little more vetted, but that there is shit about Kamala Harris that we don't know. And what we know is pretty bad. And once she becomes not a threat, but once she puts herself on the field that way, more stuff is going to come out. There's always an October surprise for all the candidates, and Kamala will be no different.
And the Trump campaign already taking shots at Harris. Isn't that sort of the ultimate compliment? I want to watch the new ad that they're putting out.
Okay. Let's watch.
And you know who's waiting behind him, right? Vote Joe Biden today and Kamala Harris tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, to me, that's not Harris replacing Biden. That's because he's old as fuck and he's going to die. Like, that's what that's about.
This suggests that they're nervous about Harris taking that spot on the ticket.
They're certainly paying attention to it. When the people that we've been talking to on the Trump.
No, they're using her as a cudgel to beat Joe Biden with. She is so annoying and unlikable. They're like, oh, well, if you don't like Biden, look who's waiting in the wings right behind him. This is not what the fuck. Some people have the worst takes.
Campaign have been a little bit flabbergasted by what happened over the last week. They were not expecting that performance from Joe Biden, and they were not expecting things to snowball in this way over the course of the week. But they are now looking at the situation that everybody's looking at, which is that Joe Biden is in trouble. He has this interview today. We'll see how it goes. He has a campaigning that he's doing. We'll see how that goes. But this may be a campaign that changes in a major, major way very quickly.
But Lance, I want to ask you, if they were to replace President Biden, that has enormous political fallout. Can you lay out the consequences of switching someone at the top of the ticket?
Dire.
I mean, we haven't seen anything like that. I certainly cannot even remember when we had something like that happen. For Republicans, the Democrats are going to have a lot of problems putting that coalition together and making sure they're unified. That's number one. That's first and foremost the problem they're going to have.
He's a spokesperson for the Burgum campaign? Okay.
They also have the underlying issues which haven't been on their side: the border, the economy, cost of living. And if it is the vice president, she is going to be tied to who else? Joe Biden. There are going to be questions about the border. There are going to be questions about the cost of living. She has been his number two. I also think there are going to be questions for her. What did you know and when did you know it about the president's fitness for office? And that will constantly dog her throughout that campaign.
How do you think President Biden, knowing him as well as
I think that guy had a great take on it. There's going to be division within the Democratic Party. Kamala Harris is going to be held responsible for everything that Joe Biden said and did. And then, like he said, the last question is like, you saw this going on for how long and you didn't stand up? How can we trust you as a leader if you see this obvious decrepit man running the country? You know it's a problem. You know he's unfit, and you stayed silent. Again, she's going to stay silent because that's her role, is to be number two. But if she were to take that mantle, it'd be pretty hard for her to talk that away.
Constantly dog her throughout that campaign.
How do you think President Biden, knowing him as well as you do, would handle, right, having to handle himself, having to be removed from the top of the ticket? Would he just still fall in line? He's often been underestimated. Hard not to take this personally. How do you think he would respond?
You know, he carries himself with a lot of dignity and a lot of class, and if that is what he chooses to do, he will do that with the utmost dignity, and people will give him that grace. I do think the party will actually give him a lot of grace here, and I think the media will as well. But if you look back to 2015 when he decided not to run, that was handled with such care and such respect, and he handled himself so well during that entire process. I would expect nothing less. He is a statesman at the end of the day. He wants what's best for this country, and so he will do nothing he will not jeopardize the Democrats' ability to beat Donald Trump in November, his ego will not take center stage here.
You got to be kidding me. He challenged a guy to push-ups. He said, "Hey, fat, how many push-ups can you do?" What do you mean his ego won't be challenged? One of the most clipped moments of the debate was him arguing with Donald Trump about who had the better golf swing. What the hell is this lady on about? Yes, he's going to be upset. I'll tell you what, Joe Biden doesn't want to step down because for him, it's about legacy. It's about his name, about the Biden name. You know how proud he is about that? Yeah, has no fucking ego. Sure, whatever, lady. Yes, he does. He's more concerned about his legacy. He's more concerned about being the president that defeated Donald Trump. What do you think sounds better in Biden's mind, to Biden's family, as his legacy? That he died in office defeating Donald Trump. Because of him, we staved off fascism and protected democracy. That will be the narrative if he survives through election day and manages to beat Donald Trump. That will be his legacy. That will be what he's known for. If he's removed from office, then that instantly becomes his legacy. Him being removed and then Donald Trump winning, like I think he will, that is going to be a terrible legacy to be left behind for Joe Biden and his family and the Biden name and all that kind of stuff. And then for him to step down, whether he steps down or he's removed, it doesn't matter. It tarnishes his reputation. It tarnishes his life's work. He's not going to give this up. And I don't think that they have it in them to remove him. If the decision to replace Joe Biden is made, Joe Biden has to be complicit in it. It all starts and stops with him, and he keeps saying he ain't stopping.
Well, the pressure is certainly mounting. Stephen, I want to get some of your latest reporting where you write, quote, "The problem with the president's argument is that the debate debacle has forced voters to consider not just the success of his administration, which are comparable with those of any other modern Democratic president, but also whether they can imagine an even slower and more fragile president being in office years from now."
Yeah, the president makes this argument, as his staff do, that 90 minutes on the debate stage shouldn't define his presidency. And a lot of Democratic readers have made that argument to me, that we're concentrating too much on what happened on the debate, on the president's health. The problem is voters are selecting a president for the next 4 years. Biden would be 86 at the end of a second term. It's very difficult, knowing what we do, how people age at that advanced age, to think that this is going to get any better. There's going to be moments, and there's going to be plateaus, and things are going to get worse. And that, I think, is a concern that a lot of voters are saying, and they've been telling pollsters this for 2 years. Neither party has really listened to what voters are saying about the identity of the two nominees and the tickets this year.
No, I'm actually really appreciative you said that, because that's what I was going to say. It's not just these 90 minutes. People have been pointing this out forever. The big difference here was this debate was the first time it was on the national stage. This was the first time that many people had looked at, what their president had been saying or doing. The media, for the longest time, has been selectively editing his clips, let's say, and showing him in the best possible light. Or rather than showing clips of him saying the thing, They've transcribed the things he said and then put those out as news reports. So your average normie who doesn't follow stuff like this every day, who doesn't, keep track with what the president's doing today and what he's up to and who he's talking to and what was said and all this kind of stuff, your average person doesn't do that. Your average person might turn on the news in the morning or at night before they go to bed and just kind of get the headlines, kind of stay up to date, see a couple memes. What's that about? Biden falls down off his bike. Biden falls up the stairs. Ha ha, very funny. Trump says something stupid. Ha ha, very funny. But this debate was the first time you actually see them unfiltered, unedited, whatever, in all their glory. And that is really they've seen the memes. Oh, Biden's falling down. Oh, he's just, whatever. That's nothing. It's not that serious. It's not that bad. Republicans or right-wingers or anti-Biden people are very upset. They're just exaggerating. No, you can't hide it anymore. That was the big difference with the debate. You can't hide it anymore. And so the guy's right that people have been saying this for a long time. Voters have expressed their concern or disappointment, their dissatisfaction with their candidates on both sides. But to act like, for the Biden administration and his allies to come out and then say, well, it's just a 90-minute debate. No, it's not just a 90-minute debate. It has been like this pretty much from day one. And people have been pointing it out. And not only have you said it's not true, you've lied and tried to spin it the other way and say, no, actually, Trump is the one with dementia. Actually, Trump is the one who's a feeble old man who shouldn't be allowed near the Oval Office because he doesn't have the cognitive ability. That's where this whole thing about stable genius, I think that was 2016. But you get what I'm saying. Instead of accepting the reality that is Joe Biden and criticizing it or pointing it out and saying hey, this is actually a problem. Not only did you not recognize that it was real, but you tried to hide it and spin it and cover it up the other way. And so it's just no good.
Now, I also want to talk about the pressure from donors, because as we know, things get real when the donors start either freezing their money or redirecting it. Abigail Disney, the granddaughter of Roy Disney, who co-founded the Walt Disney Company, told CNBC that she plans to withhold donations to the party that she's funded for years until Biden drops out. This is where things get serious.
Yeah, I talked to a Democratic senator who has not to be identified, who gave me this long, extended metaphor that's in the story, where, talking about how this is like the quarterback getting his bell rung. They don't know whether the quarterback's going to be able to get back on the field. And then people from the stands start shouting, hey, put in that guy from Alabama, or, the guy who won the Heisman last year. And the people on the field are saying, hold on, let's go with the backup quarterback here. And this is obviously very much with Harris in mindset. Just because the backup threw an interception the last time she was up doesn't mean that we switch it out now. She knows all the plays. So there is this frustration that I get into in the story too, of a lot of people saying to the donors, you need to maybe back up here and not be putting the pressure on. I think the other thing is that it is hard to believe that Abigail Disney and a lot of these donors, no matter what happens, are not going to be there with their money to fund the effort to stop Donald Trump from coming back. So this is, yes, maybe over the course of the next couple of days we'll see more of this. Let's see where that is in November.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a big problem when the donors leave, and that's obviously going to have sway on what happens next. But I don't think it really matters all that much, because all they really have to do is do what they've been doing and point out that, from their perspective, Donald Trump is this massive dictator he's now a king, and he's going to come, he's going to ruin everything, and he's going to take over the world, and he's going to be president for life and all this kind of stuff. He's going to come after women and his political opponents and all this. They could just run on that rhetoric, and then that alone, that will be enough in and of itself to fundraise on and make up whatever deficit the Disney team is, the lady from Disney is not contributing. And for every one of her, there's a bunch of others who will not fall for this. And especially once the Democratic convention comes and goes and Biden remains, and that is my prediction, that's where I think he's going to be. We'll see if I'm right or wrong, but I'm kind of going against the market on this, but I think that Joe Biden is not going to step down. He's going to stay in for legacy, for posterity, and for a number of reasons that he's going to stay in. And I don't think the only way that I think Joe Biden gets removed is if, one, he removes himself, but two, there's a viable, but not only viable, but acceptable replacement. Because they're reporting, let's not forget, there's plenty of reporting out there that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and his family don't get along. That the Harris family and the Biden family don't necessarily see eye to eye. She was, people, you're not allowed to say that she's a DEI hire, but she very clearly was. Biden said before he even chose Kamala Harris, I think it was during the debates, he said that he was going to choose a black woman as his female vice president. Well, who else? You're not going to get Michelle. So who else would you have put in that position? You put Ketanji Brown Jackson on the in the court or whatever. So you're not going to do that. Like, obviously it was going to be Kamala Harris. But she was chosen not for her political acumen or because she was, the most talented person in the room. It's because she was the one with the biggest name recognition. Because they were at each other's throats during the primary, and you could say, oh, that's just politics. They're just doing whatever. Well, not according to the other reporting. So I say all that to say I don't think that Joe Biden is going to step down and willingly give it to somebody who he reportedly doesn't get along with very well. And he's just not going to do it for legacy and for all these other reasons. The only way is if there is a viable, and by viable, I mean somebody who can beat Donald Trump. And unless you get Big Mike in there, I really don't see anybody else on the field that's even possible. But that's just my take.